heck? Welcome to In Frame Out's Year in Film, where we take stock of 12 months of spectacular cinema and unfortunate rubbish. Here we are, ready to throw a parade of plaudits and flowery words for our favourite cinematic achievements that carried us from January to December. Just a quick note, because sometimes people get extremely mad at me for having subjective opinions. See everything I'm showing on screen right now? These are not in the final 5. They're all films I enjoyed a great deal, and I'd recommend them all, but they missed the cut. What are you gonna do? So without further preamble, and with just a little bit of cheating, here are entries 5 through 1 of our best films of 2024. Capturing the look of a perfectly faded photograph and a golden hour hue right down to its bones, La Chimera has a little bit of everything about it. Somehow its blend of arthouse languor, breezy romance, thoughtful drama, and lads being lads comedy miraculously clicks.
La palla che vi serve?
Per piantare fave, Marcia.
Piantare fave sti tempi. Ma io dico.
Ma allora forse per questo non sono venuto, ma che ho?
Te l'ho detto,
Ma dovete dire voi, io che ne so.
Challenging but never pretentious, this tale of dirtbag archaeologists has so much to say about valuing the past at the expense of the present, the weight we assign to inanimate objects, and the ethics of exploration, but it never feels the need to cram dialogue into what is readily apparent, not when a quiet image speaks louder than words, or when you can just have a Greek chorus intermittently break in and sing some thematic exposition for us all.
Pensateci miei cari che cosa fa la legge, chi sfrutta il tuo lavoro lo protegge.
La Chimera has a tempo and swagger that might feel too loose for some, and that's okay. But for me, it was an engrossing but unhurried adventure, quite unlike anything I can think to name. The unifying power of art and collaboration shines through a tragicomic prism of schoolyard insecurities and formative friendships in Look Back. This 53-minute feature finds so much depth, development, and devastating coming-of-age honesty in its fleeting runtime that I don't think my heart could have handled another second. To speak any more about the arcs or outcomes that befall these adoringly drawn characters would deny you the joy of discovery, as I think this is probably best experienced blind. But what I will say is this. Imagine someone turned the Lisa's rival episode of The Simpsons into a transcendent crescendo of companionship and loss. That's what we're working with here.
4年生で私より絵うまいやつがいるなんて絶対に許せない。
All of which bracingly flows atop Haruka Nakamura's staggeringly lush score. I haven't talked much about music this end of the year season, and that may be because Nakamura wrecked the curve with not only my favourite score of the last 12 months, but what could comfortably stand as the best post-rock inflected album of the last 365 days period. When I left the theatre, I listened to the soundtrack on repeat, reliving the wrenching beauty of what I'd just experienced as hot tears threatened to destroy my eyes.
部屋から出てよかった。
え？
本当は今日外に遊びに行くのが怖かったの。でも今日はすごく楽しかった。
Look Back is a little miracle that casts its spell before you even have the time to realise you're witnessing true magic. For me, this is hands down the year's crowning work of animation.
Oh, they list Baked Alaska. Ever read it?
No.
Real good. It's hot on the outside and cold inside.
That's why they call it baked Alaska, I imagine.
Locating cloistered loneliness and a rugged gorgeousness at the heart of masculinity, whilst grappling with the futility of trying to pin down an objective meaning for such a loaded word, Queer highlights the facades men put in place, and the sumptuous, frightening truths these outward presentations protect and hide.
I shall never forget that. The unspeakable horror that froze the lymph in my glands. The lymph glands, that is, of course, when that baneful word seared my reeling brain. Homosexual.
Behind all this sweat-soaked sexuality, stubbled insecurity, an invigoratingly anachronistic soundtrack, and director Luca Guadagnino's visual and narrative abstractions, is a tale that moves beyond gender, sexuality, and time. Because at its heart is a very simple universal question. What do you do when you fall madly in love with someone who might not feel the same? Humid, yearning, and shot through with the bittersweet tang of alcohol and longing, Queer is an astonishing adaptation and an achievement of expression for everyone involved. Eerily humming with the melancholic warmth of a CRT display, I Saw the TV Glow feels like a coat hanger antenna tuned to a frequency of pure empathy. A sure-to-be seminal work about identity, the psychic agony born of a constant rift between the ideal and actual self, and the liberating but quaking proposition of self-actualization, I genuinely think this could prove to be a Frank Reynolds I get it moment for a generation of folks looking for an insight into the spiritual wear and tear of gender dysphoria, code switching, and denial.
What about you? Do you like girls?
I don't know.
Boys?
I think that I like TV shows.
Then again, I also think this really works on a more general level, where there's a palpable horror associated with being who you think you should be rather than who you truly are. I Saw the TV Glow is also one of the few attempts to replicate 90s TV aesthetics that acknowledges that nostalgia is a skewed memory of a memory rather than a tangible representation of lived experiences or something that can be captured and reclaimed. Every formative and core moment that we dwell on and hold fast to in our private moments is subject to a fuzzy VHS degradation that can damage an image or idea just as much as it can coat it in a warm, familiar layer of chromatic aberration.
I don't want to alarm you.
Maybe we should talk to somebody, the police or my dad, or...
No. You can't tell anybody about this.
For all its tape hiss and affinity for simpler times of greater substance, this is far more than Trans Peak's Buffy Watch With Me, though the deep-rooted sentimentality for those series is clearly inked into each pore. I Saw the TV Glow is lovely, terrifying, and it honestly made me ache for every version of me that ever felt unworthy of love, and all the parts ever racked with a loneliness that only art could soothe. People call films brave for all sorts of reasons, but seldom has it been more fitting than it is here. A provocative, truth-to-power condemnation of Sharia law under the Islamic Republic of Iran that had to be shot entirely in secret and smuggled out of the country, the mere production and existence of the seed of the sacred fig is as much an act of protest as the story it tells.
20 سال سالم کار کردم. برای اجرای عدالت قسم خوردم.
for having the audacity to show the hellish oppression of theocratic rule and a weaponized judiciary system used to suppress and kill those who defy the rigid doctrine of powerful men, director Mohammad Rasulov was forced to flee Iran after being sentenced to flogging, complete asset forfeiture, and 8 years in prison.
When I was sentenced to 8 years in prison, I asked myself whether I wanted to stay in Iran or whether I'd rather carry on being a filmmaker.
Normally I don't feel the need to put that much real-world context into these lists, but I cannot think of a more crucial work of artistic integrity to come out of cinema in living memory.
My collaborators were harassed and taken in for questioning. My cinematographer had his office raided. My sound engineer had his passport confiscated.
Beyond the behind-the-scenes courage, these convictions are masterfully maneuvered into a gripping familial drama about generational divides, the trauma born of distrust, and how ideological imbalances can desecrate and destroy every facet of domestic life.
همه اینا توطئه دشمنه.
توطئه چیه بابا؟ من اصلا چیکار به دشمن دارم، چیکار به اتحاد دنیا دارم؟ یه دختر جوون همسن من به خاطر حجابش کشته شده. آخه چرا؟
همین اطلاعاتت غلطه. کشته نشده، سکته کرده.
There's even a meta-narrative at play where, much like the cast and crew making The Seed of a Sacred Fig, the characters use cameras as both a sword and shield to document and dissuade the violence of those seeking to stomp them down. There has been no greater illustration of maternal care and unconditional love in 2024 than this scene in which a deeply conservative mother tenderly pulls buckshot from the face of a girl deemed an enemy of the state, nor has there been as tense a moment as the barbaric interrogation of this family, especially when knowing that a significantly worse version of this very treatment potentially befell each of these actors for telling this story.
شما یه جوری حرف میزنی با آدم برمیخوره.
بشینید. من که دارم با کمال احترام با شما حرف میزنم. این اتاق تا حالا همچین احترامی رو به کسی که روی این صندلی بشینه ندیده.
The Seed of the Sacred Fig is truly incredible and important. And if not for a final stretch that can't quite match the perfection that preceded it, this would have easily claimed our film of the year.
Ton ami est où? On aimerait ça lui parler pour notre bulletin. Peut-être que toi, tu veux nous dire quelques mots?
A whodunit courtroom drama that's artifacted and compressed until fact and fiction become a warped smear of screaming pixels, Red Rooms is a binary abyss of true crime obsession. Moreover, this is a psychological and sociological investigation into those who find comfort in tragedy. It confronts each of us who've ever pried into the real-life gory details of something abhorrent with a sobering query. What primal part of the human condition became so out of whack that we now seek entertainment and arousal from what is effectively the forensic deconstruction of murdered young women?
Globe oculaire coupé à l'exacto. Entrailles exhibées. Corps dépecé. Membres arrachés. Et les cris. Les cris de Kim et Justine, je les entends toutes les nuits quand je ferme mes yeux.
As this often rancid character study of two terminally online people and their morbid infatuation with the trial of an alleged child destroyer, Red Rooms somehow manages to delve as deep as any film of this stripe ever has without once being exploitative or crass. Yet, through the ice and electric versatility of Juliet Gariepi and Laurie Babin's performances, oral and visual design that left me clutching my guts, and at least 3 scenes that managed to be the most disturbingly violent moments of the year without showing a single frame of violence, watching this feels like being emotionally hacked, hijacked, and reprogrammed.
Bientôt, il va regarder direct dans la caméra. Mais non.
I mean, there's one shot, which I'm not going to spoil because you should really watch this, that I'm going to call the courtroom Lolita scene, and it's as grotesque and sickening as anything I've seen this century, and it's achieved with nothing more explicit than a look and a smile. Writer-director Pascal Plante is in total command of this delicate subject matter and the necessary shocks to the system required to tackle trial by social media, dark web sadists, and contrarian conspiracy theorists without getting bogged down or forgetting the humanity. And it takes someone of supreme nuance and cineliteracy to appropriate legal drama and tech noir signifiers without the faintest whiff of sterility or stuffiness.
Avoir présenté en cours une photo de la mâchoire décomposée devant le jury puis devant la mère de Camille aussi. T'sais, après ça, le juge, lui, il a beau dire au jury d'ignorer cette image-là, mais le mal est fait. Ils ont vu Ludovic dans la cage avec la mâchoire décomposée juste à côté. Après ça, c'est sûr qu'eux, ils ont envie de dire que c'est lui le coupable. Allô, une salade de pâtes avec un café noir, s'il vous plaît.
I am quietly confident in calling Red Rooms the most remarkable feature ever made about the reality distortion field of online spaces. One that perfectly conveys the 21st century detachment and compassionless malaise born of internet anonymity, and perpetuated by armchair sleuths, true crime podcasts, and Reddit forensic pathologists. Red Rooms is a firewire noose of choking tension, a pulsing magnet slowly dragged across a hard drive until compassion is irretrievably corrupted, and cinema at its most nerve-jangling and necessary. For that, and for an essay's worth of reasons I wouldn't dare ruin, Red Rooms is In Frame Out's best film of 2024. And there you have it, our top 5 films of the year. Make sure to click the playlist in the description below to catch up on all our end of the year videos that you may have missed, and tune in next week for entries 5 through 1 of our worst films of 2024. Shout out to our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Beckio, Kay Krause, Jennifer Fetish, Reed Stoven, Flamin, CC Sings, Arden Hughes, Samantha Hughes, Tara O'Connell, and Nicholas Lair-Revere, and a million enthusiastic fist bumps for all these amazing folks who support the channel over at Patreon. So what do you make of my favourite films of the year? And I'd love it if you hit me up in the comments with your lists. As always, the best way to help us out is to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment down below, and if you're in a position to do so, consider checking out our Patreon at the link in the description below. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.